If you're wondering how to get started with calisthenics as a complete beginner, then this video is for you. I'm Nicholas, the founder of Online Calisthenics, and today I'm going to talk about the 5 most important movements in calisthenics. We're talking about the pull-ups, the push-ups, the dips, the squats, and the core hinge. So let's get started with the first and most important one, which is the pull-ups. The pull-ups is the king of all upper body movements. If you can't do a full pull-up yet, don't worry, there are plenty of progressions you can do, so let's dive into it now. Pull-ups are a challenge for anyone. Really, even if you're good at it, it's still hard because you try to achieve more of them, so you're not alone. Everybody thinks that pull-ups are hard. So if you're just getting started, here are 7 movements that you can practice in order to progress all the way up to the full pull-up. The first thing you want to practice is a standing pull-up. It's a single arm pulling movement, and it's as simple as it sounds. You stand up, you grab any post or a doorway, and you pull yourselves towards the wall or the post, and repeat that enough times so that your back starts to feel tired and your back muscles grow over time. You repeat with each arm. Once you feel comfortable with the standing pull-up, then you move on to the Australian pull-up. The Australian pull-up is an horizontal pull-up, which you do with the bar that's low enough so you can pull yourself off the ground diagonally. And make sure that you feel your back as you're pulling. You can also pause at the top. Make sure to squeeze the back hard, release, and do it again. Once you've mastered the Australian pull-up, you can move on to the third movement, which is the dead hang. The dead hang requires a higher pull-up bar, which allows you to hang with your entire body weight. The goal is to be comfortable into hanging overhead, making sure that your scapula are nicely depressed, so a little bit down here, so that you get strength in your lats as you are hanging. Once you get good at hanging, let's say you can hang for 20 to 30 seconds, then you can start adding shrugs into that hang. So they're called hanging shrugs. This is getting even closer to the real pull-up. So that makes sure that you can shrug up and down as you're hanging and holding your whole body weight from the bar. And once you're able to do that progressively good, then you're getting really close to the pull-up. The next variation will be the assisted band pull-ups. That means you use a resistance band, you wrap it up around the bar, and then you pull it down and put your foot in there. And you start doing reps of pull-ups with this. You can start with a thicker band that assists you progressively, and then you lower the thickness of the band as you get stronger, so that would lower the resistance and increase your strength. And once you've achieved the pull-up with the thinnest band, then you're really an inch closer to the real pull-up. Then start to do it without any bands, and you will be achieving your full pull-ups. So in a nutshell, start with the movement that you can currently do and get really good at it. In terms of volume, try to go from 5 to 10 reps and do at least 3 to 5 sets every time you train that movement. Try to do that at least 3 times a week. Do that until you get very good at the variation you're training, and then move on to the next one once you feel comfortable. So that's about the pull-up. But now let's move on to the push-ups. Just like for pull-ups, there are 5 steps that you can use in order to get good at push-ups if you can't do a full repetition yet. This is a very humble movement, and believe it or not, but a lot of people are actually not doing it right. Even though it's the most universal training movement around the world, a lot of people are struggling with it. So let me show you what are the 5 elements in order to get good at them. First, there's the standing push-up. So just like for the pull-up, you can stand up against the wall and then starting to do push-ups against a wall. Make sure you tuck your elbows in, that you keep your shoulders down, and that you press through your chest and tricep and repeatedly try to get better at it. You can stand very upright in the beginning when you're a very beginner, and then try to lean in forward as you get better. Then once you start to get good at the wall push-up, then you can step up your game and go to the elevated knee push-up. So that means that you're going to just drop on your knees and find an elevated surface that you can press on. So it could be a bench, a bar, anything that you like, a chair. It doesn't matter as long as you have a little bit of height so that you can press from a higher point than the ground. It's going to be a bit easier than from the ground itself. Then once you master the elevated knee push-up, you can try to move on to the elevated push-up. So instead of being on your knees, you would just have your straight leg on the floor and try to get a repetition from that. So start with a height that's enough for you so that you can lower your body into it and repeat the movement until you're good at it and you can move on to the next progression. And the next progression will be going on the floor. So now we're not elevating our grips, and that's going to make your weight heavier or feel heavier as you go. and get good at those until you feel that you're strong enough to move on to the real full push-up. That would be the same thing, except your legs will be extended in the air instead of your knees being on the ground. And here are additional tips you can do within those 5 progressions. You can start adding planks as well, and you can do shrug push-ups, which is just a scapular push-up when you're in the plank. You're just moving your scapula, you're not going all the way down. You're learning how to move your scapula nice and strong. And just like the pull-ups, start with the variation you can currently do, get very good at it, and move on to the next progression. As far as volume, try to go for 5 to 10 repetitions and 3 to 5 sets at least, and do it at least 3 times a week to see real results. And remember that the key to the result is consistency. Be consistent and you will see results. Now let's move on to the dips. The dips are an essential movement as well because they will focus on your triceps, which are the most important muscles in your arm. So make sure that you build strong triceps to get good at calisthenics overall. The first thing you want to do with the dips is starting with the box dips. So basically you find a higher surface around your hip level, you put your hands behind you, and then you start going up and down with your triceps, making sure that you control the descent and come back fast. You want to make sure to master this because it will burn off your tricep in a great way and it will allow you to move forward to the next progression. Here are a couple tips to get good at the box dips. Make sure that you sit on the edge of the bench, that your hands are not too far back so that you don't injure your wrist. Make sure that your fingertips are facing forward. Engage your core, and your legs position can vary. You can start with bent legs and flat feet on the floor, and then you can start with elevating your toes off the floor, so just planting your heels in there and extending your legs further forward as you progress to make it harder overall. Once you master the box dips, the next movement would be straight arm dip shrug. Stand on the parallel bars, straight arms, and as you're engaged into that hollow body, you make sure that you push the triceps to elevate yourself up and depress the shoulder down. And as you're here, you try to go shrugging down, shrugging up, shrugging down and shrugging up, keeping your arms completely straight and making sure that you burn off those triceps. Once you feel good with the shrugging dips, now it's time to move on to the walking dips. And this would be the same initial position where you stand tall and straight on the bar dips, and then you would move forward one arm at a time as if you're walking the bars, and you can go forward and backwards as well. That's a great way to get strong and to build support in your shoulders as you're moving. Once you're good with the dip walks, then you can move on to the assisted jump dips. So just like for a pull-up where you would jump off, it's the same thing. You start at the bottom of the dips on this one, feet on the floor, and then you use your legs to jump. From this assisted jump dips, you can reduce the amount of assistance you use by only using one foot instead of two. That would be a big deal. You can also use a resistance band that you wrap up around the bar, and so you can put your knees in there and use the band as an assistance just like you would for a pull-up. And the more you practice all of those progressions, the more you will feel comfortable doing dips in the long run. So make sure to practice the variation that you can currently do and get very good at it until you can move on to the next progression. As far as volume, try to go from 5 to 8 reps because they are very hard, and try to do 3 to 5 sets at least 3 times a week. We talked about the upper body, now let's focus on the lower body. And for this, the squats are the king of lower body exercises. They will build your strength, mobility, and they will really improve your quads, your glutes, and overall leg strength. So do it, but don't be fooled by their simplicity. They can be challenging, especially for beginners. Before we dive into the full squat, it's very important to understand that your squatting ability is going to depend on several factors, and one of them is your ankle mobility. Ankle mobility is very often lacking, and stiff ankles are everywhere. So make sure that you do exercises that flex the ankle forward so that your knee can drive forward as well, and that your squat can get clean and low. So do ankle dorsiflexion stretches, such as this one where you stand about a couple of inches from the wall and you bend your knee and try to get your knee to the wall without lifting your heel. And that's going to be a challenge. You're going to feel it in your ankles, and it's going to be a great way to get past a certain level of mobility to get better at squat. Now, in addition to those ankle mobility drills, let's start with the wall sit. That's the first thing you want to master. So lean against the wall with your knee bent at 90 degrees and hold this position for 20 to 30 seconds and gradually increase the hold time as you get stronger. aim for 3 to 5 sets. And once you get good at those, move on to the next progression. And the next progression is nothing else than a box squat. So you find a box that's high enough so that you can comfortably squat down and sit on the box and come back up just after you touch the box. Try to make sure to not sit completely on the box because that would be setting off the next half of your movement. Aim for 10 to 15 repetitions of those box squats and try to do 5 sets total. As you progress, you decrease the box height. So maybe you are going to have to start with a box that's higher than your knees, and then you would little by little challenge yourself into falling down on a box that's lower than your knees. So by that, you will challenge your quads, improve your glute strength, and your overall squat capacity. Then once you're good with the box that's lower than your knees, then get rid of the box altogether. You would just do squats without a box. So go as low as you can, as long as your form is clean. Keep your back straight, don't round it, and come back up. Try to do anywhere from 5 to 10 reps and do 5 sets at least 3 times a week. So we talked about all the upper body movements. We talked about the squats, which is the king of lower body movements. And there's one key element missing here is our core. Don't forget that the core is an essential muscle. It makes the connection between your upper and lower body, your lower back and your hips. It's really the powerhouse of your body. And if it's lacking, everything else will be as well. So in order to hinge your core properly or fold your body in half, you want to start with a laying knee tuck hold. And it's as simple as just laying your back flat on the ground and then raising your legs into a 90 degree and hold it there, trying to feel like your butt is coming off the ground slightly without jumping, without making any other effort than pulling your pelvis back and squeezing your glutes and your abs in there so that your legs stay up. Once you're familiar and comfortable with doing that static hold, then you can start doing small repetitions. So you would bend the knees down to the floor and then raise it back up and try to go up and down as often as you can and as long as you can to burn off those ab muscles until you feel comfortable with that movement. Then once you're comfortable with moving your legs in a bent positions, then you would move on to an extended position. So you raise your legs, they're bent, and at your knee level, you try to extend out. So you feel that it's going to put a lot more weight on your core once your legs are extended. So complete as many repetitions as you can during each set and maintain that core engagement throughout the whole repetition. Once you're good with the knee raises on the floor, then you can move on to the parallel bar knee raises. So it's really the same movement. Instead of being laying down on the floor, you would just be perpendicular to the floor while standing on those parallel bars. And the motion is similar. You would have your straight legs hanging down while you're in the neutral position and then raise your legs through your core, starting to bend your core and try to minimize your hip flexion. That way you don't overuse your hip flexors. Make sure that you really engage your core before you lift your legs. So you bend your knees up, you hold it as long as you can, and then come down, and that's 1 set. Try to repeat that as long as you can. Try to go for 5 sets at the very least. Do that 3 times a week. Once you're good at this, then go for repetitions. So you lift your legs up, and instead of holding, you just come down and do it again. And so that is repetitions instead of just a static hold. Note that you can really, once you get good at these, you can mix those two. You can mix repetitions and static holds. That's actually a great way to get even stronger. Once you're good with the parallel bars, start with the hanging knee raises. And they're a little more demanding because they're going to challenge your grip. They're going to challenge your back as well. But this is the same idea. And hold it as long as you can. So it's basically a dead hang plus a knee tuck hold at the same time. Your body is going to get challenged. You're going to feel that your core is very, very active. Make sure to not overuse your hip flexors. And once you're familiar and comfortable with that hanging tuck hold, then you move on to the hanging knee raises themselves. So you start in a full dead hang, body completely straight, and then you raise your knees 90 degrees and come down and try to do that as much as you can. Once you start, try to go for 5 to 10 reps per set. Try to go at least for 5 sets and do that 3 times a week to get real results. So just like for the other movements, start with the variation that you can currently do. Don't jump ahead and try to go faster. Make sure that you master each progression before you move on to the next one. So there you are. We covered the 5 most important progressions for calisthenics. It will cover your upper body, lower body, and core section in a way that's going to really make you progress forever. It will build essential foundations and allow you to step up your game and get to the full repetitions that you've always wanted to do. So if you're ready to take your workout to the next level, feel free to click the link below, come train with me, join the academy, and I will see you in the next video.